I think this is particularly cute on Sorcerer. I love that we were been talking about Sorcerer in the top fives
Yeah.
recently. There's been a really big pinch where you're like, wow, you get one new spell. That's rough. If you can have like if you start with a 15 or more likely a 17 charisma going into Sorcerer and you get to level 4, getting this fixes so many problems.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the feat Fey Touched.
I can't touch you. There we go. That's as close
Uh,
as I can get.
no, wrong way. There.
Oh yeah, they might be that way. I don't remember.
Whatever.
Uh, this is a feat from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Uh, it is a banger feat for the low tiers especially. So this says your exposure to the Feywild's magic has changed you, granting you the following benefits. Increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1 to a maximum of 20. Delicious. Excellent place to start. But wait, there's more. It also says you learn the Misty Step spell and one first level spell of your choice. The first level spell must be from the Divination or Enchantment School of Magic. You can cast each of these spells once without expending a spell slot. Once you cast either of these spells this way, you can't cast the spell again until you finish a long rest. You can also cast these spells using spell slots you have of the appropriate level. The spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat. So if you pick something with a save, it'll use the spell's DC that you would calculate using that modifier.
Yeah, I love everything about this.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
I can't believe this one gives you an ability score. Look, yeah, there's so many that are worse than this that don't.
Yeah, it may like overtly not seem, especially if you're in the mid tiers, like what extra first and second level spell is that impactful. Let me tell you that it is. It will give you 2 extra valuable resources, one of which, like Misty Step, I think is like a first and a half level spell. Like I really have a hard time just finding second level slots on it, but it's a really good effect that you want from time to time. That's
Oh
why I
yeah.
like it more in the upper tiers. But like getting a free use of it, it feels great. You're gonna always have ways to use it. You're gonna always have ample opportunity to slap that thing off whenever you need a teleport. And it's gonna be cheap. It's spectacular.
Divination and enchantment are maybe my two least favorite schools of magic, but we've got silvery barbs there
Yeah, we sure do.
smiling at me.
Yeah, so in enchantment, the big options for enchantment, I think, are Charm Person, Dissonant Whispers, Hex for some niche characters, Silvery Barbs, and Hideous Laughter. I think all 5 of those can do some cool stuff. And there are other little options on here like Bless, Bane, Heroism, that kind of stuff. Divination's a little bit worse. You get detect magic if you really need it here, but again, this doesn't give you ritual casting or anything, and this is feats most appealing to people that don't already have spells, so you probably don't necessarily want to detect magic with this. You can get Hunter's Mark, which is akin to Hex if you are doing some kind of multi-attacker build, and if you're like a ranged multi-attacker that isn't a ranger that has access to it, or you just want an extra use of it, and your bonus check is relatively free, I can see it being a decent investment there. But
I
I
could
think like
see
most of the time.
I could see maybe going with detect magic. I'm not bothered that it's not a ritual spell. I mean, if I'm getting this for free, I can live with one use a day.
Yeah, it won't at all feel too bad. You'll usually find a way to use it every day.
Now, what I
Um,
like about this is that it's great for spellcasters because you can use your slots, and and these are relatively cheap slots as you go up, so that's just more crap you can do. Awesome. But on non-casters, you get a little magic
yeah.
that can really enhance some lackluster classes that we've been talking about.
Yeah, whenever I'm looking to play a barbarian, I've been playing a fighter in an online game with some friends, and it's a relatively low power table. Like where a lot of us are mainly there for like the role play and like just hanging out and
Hmm.
good times in the story of it all. So like the characters aren't expected to be that powerful. I even helped someone build their character, and it's like, oh here, this is the general things you can do. A beast barbarian is showing up to be like the damage powerhouse, so I try to make a character to sculpt for that. I went very inhuman fighter battle master because I didn't want to do anything spicy, but I can't live without spells. I need things to do. So my background variant feat for variant human was this because
Yeah.
I'm a charismatic gladiator. Give me 2 spells, and now I have no problem contributing in all elements of out of combat play. It's really fantastic.
Yeah.
I think this is particularly cute on Sorcerer. I love that we were been talking about Sorcerer in the top 5
Yeah.
recently. There's been a really big pinch where you're like, wow, you get one new spell. That's rough. If you can have like if you start with a 15 or more likely a 17 charisma going into Sorcerer and you get to level 4, getting this fixes so many problems. It bumps you up to 18 for a +4 mod. It gives you Silvery Barbs, so you don't have to spend a Sorcerer spell known on that. And it gives you Misty Steps, so you don't have to spend a Sorcerer spell known on that. And you can use your robust spell pool in the ways that you want to. Like, you have so much more flexibility by getting Silvery Barbs this way, by getting Misty Step this way. And both those spells are spells that a lot of sorcerers want on their sheet. So, like, this spell existing makes sorcerers really happy. It also makes rogues really happy. Rogues with Misty Step feel so good, especially Arcane
Mm.
Trickster, where you'd be happy to bump a 13 into a 14. You'd be happy to bump a 15 into a 16, right? I can absolutely see that being a real thing you can do. Rangers don't mind bumping their Wiz to 16. Monks don't mind bumping their Wiz to 16. Paladins don't mind bumping their Charisma up. Like, all of these martial characters that can benefit from the bump too really love this kind of ability.
And even for the ones that, maybe don't value that so much, um, the magic is cool. And, who doesn't want a little bit nicer charisma?
True.
A little more
I,
charm.
a little more charm. I'd make your barbarian a little bit more intimidating, right? Take a compel duel on your barbarian if you really want another bad spell for a bad class, but more likely take something like heroism or again, sleep, maybe hideous laughter, something that you can use, maybe even like a command or a charm person, something you can use out of combat because you can't
Mm.
cast spells in combat. But I can definitely see there being barbarians that exist where having availability of a teleport, even if it's at a little bit of a play like you can't play perfectly in combat while raging, can give you some added flexibility that you will be genuinely valuable to your out of combat utility. And given that that class lacks any, this is a way to contribute out of combat in a meaningful fashion when if that's what you're looking to do, right? If you want your character to have more to do during dungeon crawls, if you want your character to have more to do to contribute to heists, to, all of the big larger plots like planning, this is a feat that can go on your sheet with no real trouble whatsoever. I do want to touch on that, like, past the early tier, once you get to the mid tiers of the game, this spell does have diminishing returns, right? Like, if you're looking at a 13th to 15th level character, especially a spellcaster, I don't think you need this anymore. You have no shortage of spells and resources to go with. Still, if you're a marshal, though, and you don't have any, going from none to 1 to 2 is still going to feel big. So, like, there will be even some martial characters in the upper tiers where you go, well, I'm max on strength. I don't really care to max my con out. I got all the feats I want. I'll take an extra charisma bump. Why not? And I'll take 2 decent spells with it that'll help me get around the battlefield. That seems like a fine thing to do as well. It's not going to be like optimal or anything by that point, but like it will serve a noble purpose to a fewer amount of characters in that upper tier, I think.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned before, we've got sorcerers on the mind. Um, does Misty Step function with any meta magic?
It might work with distance spell. Let me check.
That would be interesting.
I think distance spell might care about the spell's range, and this is notably not its
Yeah.
range. So like I don't want to
Yeah,
say
probably not then.
yes. So it's got distance spells when you cast spell has a range of 5 feet or greater, and Misty Step. If I look over to the spell, it doesn't have a range. Its range itself, so that's not going
Yeah.
to work. So not really, no.
All right. What about other spells that do have meta magic effects? See, divination and enchantment. There's, I guess, charm person. There's,
Twinning Charm Person, Twinning Hideous Laughter, both is fine.
you know, eh,
There's, I mean, I think still most of the time you're taking Silvery Barbs, right? Like that's the
yeah,
really obviously busted option to get through this, just because it's really really efficient to get it this way on a class that has a very challenging time finding room for the first level spells that they want. So I'm pretty encouraged to take it here. I also don't even hate like twinning Dissonant Whispers if you really want something funky to do with your meta magic. Like their enchantment spells tend to be very twinnable because they tend to target a mind, right? The
yeah,
reason
that's true.
why the enchanter subclass for wizards, their split enchantment tends to be really, really busto, is because almost all of the spells you would cast that are enchantment can be twinned. Like Feeble Mind can be twinned, and all of the Dominate Persons and stuff can be twinned. So like you get whenever you're doubling an enchantment spell, it tends to be very good, and this is no exception here. I don't think that should necessarily shape it as much in my
Yeah,
mind, but it can contribute. If you want to get more juice out of your spells this way, that can work.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I do think
Go ahead.
I think the diminishing returns on this probably make it like a 4 out of 5 to me. It is a really, really awesome ability that most tables will very much so benefit from having on, especially the non-casters. And on sorcerers. And on bards. Bards also have kind of limited spell list. And on warlocks, you only have 2 spell slots. Well, this feat's just awesome on everybody. Maybe it is a 5. But it's like a casual 5. This isn't like a optimizing kind of feat.
It's getting a 5 for me because I'm never gonna make it to those levels.
That's fair.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a good all-around feat. Nobody's gonna be disappointed with this one.
Yeah, I will stick with 4 just because I don't think any DM has to really change how they game about this, but it is really
No, probably
meaningfully
not.
a major boon to your sheet.
All right. Well, that was Fey Touched. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. What do you think about the feat? What spell are you choosing? Go for it. Give us let us have it. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.